still going. He come out, okay. He flying shit. Look at him. Look at him. Look at him. Oh, with the skier. He said, what is it? Oh, man. God, that boy flying shit in the hood. Died.
I was having this conversation with somebody earlier from work, and he had said, why do most people always represent their neighborhoods as if they own their neighborhoods? Like, when you ask somebody where they from, they be like, yeah, I'm from Brooklyn, Bed-Stuy.
Bitch, I'm from Brooklyn. Of course I'm sitting outside my motherfucking building stalking Amazon for my package right now.
Well, I'm from Philly, North Philly.
I'm from North. Will we take our own motherfucking boot off? The fuck? I'm from North. Will we still go grocery shopping in our grandma's refrigerator because it's a struggle?
You know, Germantown, Lehigh, with a Germantown Avery Avenue. And it's like, you're from these places, right? And you represent those places and you always shout them out. But you don't own any property in your neighborhood. And why is that? That's a discussion I want to have with you guys today. It's like, why do people like us, why do us as a collective always represent our hoods, right? But we don't own the neighborhood. We always say where we from. Yeah, I'm from such and such Franklin Avenue. I'm from Brooklyn. I'm from Roosevelt Boulevard. I'm from North Philly, or I'm from Newark, Jersey, or whatever. It's like, but you don't own any property in your neighborhood. We're so proud to big up our neighborhood, and so proud to represent everything, and sit on the steps of a brownstone. You sit on the steps of the brownstone, and that brownstone behind you in your picture, you don't even own that brownstone. Some other non-minority owns that brownstone. You know, somebody that doesn't look like me own that brownstone. Or if you're sitting in the projects and you're sitting there, you don't own that project, the city do. Or you're sitting in a low-income home, you don't own that home, the city does. You know, I grew up in the HUD housing in Philly, you know. In Philly, I remember the city used to pay my mother money to live in that house. They used to pay my mom to actually live in that house. They sent her a check like every month. The city did. I remember that. But obviously I represented my neighborhood, of course. But as I got older, I started realizing, like, why am I representing my block when I don't own nothing on that block? Nobody on my block owned their own home. Nobody. And there was like almost 100 homes on my street growing up. Nobody owned their home. And today we still do the same thing. You go to somebody, you ask them where they're from, they're like, yeah, I'm from such and such. And by all means, you represent where you come from. I get it. But why are you oh, this is my block and you can't come on my block, or this is my territory, this is my hood. You don't own nothing there. You don't own anything there. Like, how you gonna tell somebody they can't come on your block when you don't even own a home that you even living in, or your parents, or even you sitting in front of?
State your name. Where you from?
You know, 1 point. Yo, what's that New Jersey, Ram City. You heard my boy Kool-Aid Slime. You heard?
Yeah, Ram City's finest.
Yo, who this?
This is my boy Q60 with the little 60. Like a month. Get price out on something.
That's my man, you heard? Come on, yo. Remember when I told you my name and shit? I used to knock out shit with him, you heard? Full life, you heard? Hey, yo, you remember we was right there?
Yeah.
Yo, up and down that house and shit?
Nigga, you slammed me off the stairs.
Come on, man. On the set, I ain't do that.
The top window.
On the set.
Retarded as hell.
No.
Yo, watch that car. Watch that car.
Whoa. Yo, this is a legendary court, you heard? Shit really been here our whole life, you heard? Shit saved us for real.
Or you see the person sitting in front of a corner store. You at that corner store. Meanwhile, the Poppy store, the Poppy owns that store. You don't own nothing in that corner. I'm talking about people that look like me. They don't own nothing in that corner. But they trying to be hard and oh, but you can't come on my block. But you don't own nothing. It doesn't make sense financially, you know? And I always wondered, back in the day when I grew up and I seen people make all this money, I seen people made a lot of money in Philly, you know, as a youngin'. Way back in the day, people made a lot of money. I'm talking about when I was 11, 12. Used to be a lot of money out there. Back when crack first came out, I remember that. And nobody never took their money to buy property. They bought stuff. And these were older people. We were talking about people in their 25, 30s. You know, even some of the big ballers was like 30, 40 plus. And they never took their money, all that money they made in the 90s by serving poison to the neighborhood. But they made a lot of money. And when they received all that money, first of the month or every 2 weeks when people got their check, they never took their money and bought any property in the hood. Meanwhile, now when you go back to those same hoods, they all gentrified. But we had a chance to buy them a long time ago.
No, this is so accurate because I literally drove past the street in Atlanta last year. You have houses that have been there since the 70s, and then 3 houses down, you have a whole renovated smart home.
Those homes were almost 75% cheaper back in the 90s than they are today. Especially some of the urban areas. You know, when you go to Brooklyn right now, it looks totally different. It looks like a Starbucks cafe picture. It don't even look the same. Meanwhile, back in the day, all those dudes could have bought everything. Same thing with Harlem. All those brownstones back in the day was so much cheaper, mad cheap back in the day. And nobody did anything. They never bought it. Now they turn some of those brownstones into condos, but some people back in the day could have bought the whole condo for just as much as one condo. You know what I'm saying? And same thing now. When you go to certain neighborhoods, when you go to LA, some of those neighborhoods they could have bought a long time ago for dirt cheap. They had the money, but now it's unaffordable. They can't even buy it. Every urban area where you see people that look like me, the neighborhoods were a lot cheaper back in the 90s where people were getting way more money. And they could have bought all those homes and now would have been sitting on millions right now. Meanwhile, they let other people come in and gentrify the neighborhood, and then they still go around those neighborhoods acting like they own something. You don't own that neighborhood in Brooklyn. You're just from Brooklyn, but you don't own nothing there. So what? You from North Philly. You from North Philly, but you don't own that block you don't own that neighborhood in Erie Avenue. You don't own any houses there. You don't own nothing. Same thing in South Philly. South Philly has been re-gentrified by so many people. You know, those houses used to be $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 back in early 2000s, back in the late 90s. And we could have bought them all. And that goes for me too. Obviously, I wasn't there. I was traveling with my military service, but if I had been back there, I could have bought something. But a lot of people didn't buy anything. And they still go around those blocks and they telling you can't come around their block, even though they don't own anything. You just live there. You don't own nothing. And how you gonna tell me I can't come there? You know, I'm just generalizing, but I'm just saying, people be like, yo, you can't come on my block. This is my block, blah, 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 blah. You know what I'm saying? I'm from such and such an avenue. You don't own nothing on the avenue. You don't own nothing, man. You could have bought that a long time ago. You ain't trying to hear that nonsense now. It's not about where you from. It's about where you're going to at this point, especially when you're older. You know what I'm saying? If you're like 30 plus and you're sitting on that same corner talking about you that's where you from and this is my neighborhood, where you from? And come on, man. You don't own nothing there. You don't own no home. To me, you're a bum. For real, when you really think about it. There's people that come in those neighborhoods and they re-gentrify and buy all the homes that you had a chance to buy back in the day when you used to make all that money. Or you still live in that neighborhood you could have bought a couple of years ago. Meanwhile, you're renting from the person that bought that home who has nothing to do with your neighborhood, but you're still talking about that's your block, or that's your house, or that's your hood, that's your avenue. Nobody trying to hear all that. You're just from there. You don't own nothing there. And it's just a shout out to people that have a different mindset now that they got older. It's not, I'm always going to be from where I'm from. I'm always going to love my city, love my neighborhood growing up. I appreciate that. But I don't own nothing there, so that's not my block. That's not my neighborhood. I don't own nothing there. I don't own nothing. So me, it's about where I'm going. It's about not where I come from, because I don't own that. You know what I'm saying? So if I buy a house in Indianapolis, yes, that means this is my neighborhood. If I bought a house in a block, a neighborhood in Indianapolis, yes, that's my neighborhood. Now, I was born and raised in Philly, from the North Philly, but I don't represent that. I don't own nothing there. That's just where I'm from. You know what I'm saying? So wake up, guys. Like, if you're going back to the neighborhood and you're like, try to buy something in that neighborhood, then you can really represent. You really represent the neighborhood that you bought property in. If you're paying property taxes, if you're paying insurance from that neighborhood, if you're trying to increase value in your neighborhood by renovating some of the homes. Like if you bought a home here and you see an abandoned home here, try to take equity out this house and buy that house. You know, don't let nobody else come into your neighborhood to gentrify the neighborhood. If you really want to represent your neighborhood, if you really want to represent your hood, your block, your avenue, then buy the damn thing. But don't be sitting on the steps of a brownstone. Meanwhile, somebody else, John Schmidt, owns that brownstone and you just sitting there representing your Brooklyn neighborhood, but you don't own nothing there. You just live there. You're not an owner. Keep it Econ 100. You already know.